Good evening, Antioch family, and to all who are watching on this Holy Wednesday. I am Robert Purvey. I have the pleasure and honor of serving as youth and young adult pastor here at the Antioch Fellowship Church in Dallas, Texas. And this is a beautiful Holy Wednesday. This Holy Wednesday we observe on Holy Week as the day that Jesus rested. In between Holy Tuesday and Maundy Thursday, we recognize this day as the day that Jesus rested. And most theologians believe that Jesus rested in the house that he frequented a lot in Bethany, the house of Simon the leper, which some believe is also Lazarus, Mary and Martha in their house, that Jesus rested there. And the Bible shows us in Matthew 26, 1 through 5, one account, and all the Gospels have different accounts, but Matthew 26, 1 through 5 talks about how that Jesus was eating, and next to him was Lazarus. And then John tells us that Mary was the one that came and poured out the oil on the feet of Jesus. And so here we have a scene that's set here in the house of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And Jesus is here resting. Jesus is eating. Jesus is chilling. Jesus is taking a time away from the people, away from the crowd. He's not on the donkey receiving public praise. He's not in the temple teaching or turning over tables. He's not teaching the disciples. Jesus is literally in the house having a meal with people who he loves and his friends. And in the middle of this meal, the Bible tells us that Mary brings this jar of oil, this jar of expensive nard that she brings, and she opens the bottle. And if you know anything about nard or expensive oil, it's made from a red colored oil in India, and roughly costs about $50 in America. But back in those days, it was about a year's worth of wage. But the smell of this nard, of this oil, would fill the entire room, a very intoxicating, beautiful smell. And she opens this jar and she begins to wash the feet of Jesus with her hair. This act of humility and love, this act of worship is done in the midst of her siblings, in the midst of the disciples. And she's washing Jesus' feet with her hair, something that was expensive, something that belonged to her, that was very near and dear to her, but she poured it all out on the feet of Jesus. She didn't just use a drop, because a drop of this oil would have filled the room with fragrance, but Mary gives the entire bottle to Jesus. And we parked there just to bless somebody tonight that's watching, that when you give to Jesus, you don't just give a drop of who you are or what you have. You give your all to Jesus because he is worthy of everything. And so Mary does this, and while Mary is doing this, Jesus is resting. Now Jesus is in the house. He's not here for anything but rest. And Jesus is met here with this act of worship. But also in the midst of this is one disciple named Judas, and Judas gets upset that Mary has poured out this expensive bottle of oil, because Judas makes a statement that this oil could have been used for something else, to make money elsewhere. And Judas made it seem as if he was caring about other people and how money could be given to others, when really Judas was caring about himself. And so here we see somebody giving a selfless act and somebody being selfish. We see somebody who is praising and pouring out on Jesus, but also somebody who is in on the plot of Jesus. And Jesus shows us here that even when you steal away, even when you get away from your norm, even when you're resting, that you will encounter a couple of things. That even with resting, you will encounter selflessness and selfishness from people who are close to you. That retreating away from your norm does not mean you won't face obstacles. Jesus shows us that away from the normal things, he is approached with somebody who's praising and worshiping him, but somebody who is plotting against him. And Jesus shows us what we should do in these moments. And tonight, I just want to bless you with this, that Jesus shows us that even when we retreat, even when we rest and we're faced with obstacles, that we should not focus on the plots of people, but we should focus on worship. Jesus doesn't give attention to Judas and what Judas is plotting in his heart and what Judas is saying. Jesus gives attention to Mary and says not to bother her, because what she's doing it from her heart and unto the Lord. She's giving her the most expensive thing that she had in worship and honor to Jesus Christ. And that's the word for you. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what you're going through. I know that the entire world is in this pandemic and we're all away from our norm. And we could focus and we could worry about what's happening in culture. But I dare you to stop worrying about culture and focus on worshiping Christ. That's what this week is about. It brings the whole world into one place to focus on the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And this Holy Wednesday, I want you to not focus on worry about what's happening with the pandemic and what's happening in culture and outside. No, I want you to worry. I want you to worship Jesus and give everything you have, not just a drop of you, but all of you to Jesus, because it's not a waste. It's not a waste. You giving everything you have is not a waste, because he's worthy, and you can never waste your worship on a worthy God. You can never waste your worship on a worthy God. So pour it all out. That's why I admonish you to do on this Holy Wednesday, to pour everything out at the feet of Jesus, because your worship is worth it, because he's worthy. Take that word with you on this Holy Wednesday. I pray that God continues to bless your family, continues to bless everything that's going on in your home, that church isn't canceled, it's changing. And we thank God that we have the opportunity to come into your home and bring this word of encouragement in this holy week. So I love you. Can't wait to see my Antioch family. To everyone else watching, be blessed. God loves you, and I do too. Peace.